Hey folks, this is John Becker. I'm a state representative from Claremont County, and by popular demand, and I mean popular from the people of Ohio, especially Claremont County, I bring you articles of impeachment against Governor Mike DeWine. I sent out a press release, and I'm going to read you just a small portion of that. It's actually, I'll be quoting myself here. Becker made the following statement. I kept holding out hope that we wouldn't get to this place. For months and months, I've been hearing cries of my constituents and of suffering people from every corner of Ohio. They keep screaming, do something. They are hurting. Their businesses are declining and depreciating. Their jobs have vanished. The communities that have sustained their lives are collapsing and becoming shells of what they once were. Living in fear, many have turned to drugs and, yes, even suicide. And to end or tolerate the unbearable pain inflicted by the governor upon their livelihoods and the damage caused by his unraveling of the fabric of Ohio. It is long past time to put an end to government gone wild. That's the press release, or that's a snippet from it, and you can find that at the end of this video. I'll also be putting it on, you'll be able to find it on Facebook. Now I'm going to walk you through the articles themselves. It's 10 pages. And it is 10 articles of impeachment, complete with a preamble. I've actually been working on this for several months, and hopefully this will answer your questions. My contact information will be at the end of this video. Feel free to reach out with me, and I'll try to answer any questions I can for you. So it starts with just that first off, Ohio required, it's similar to the federal process to impeach at the state level. So the federal process, you heard of high crimes and misdemeanors is what they refer to. That's because it's in the U.S. Constitution. In the Ohio Constitution, it just says misdemeanors. So we're going to talk about also what does that mean, misdemeanors, and what it means today versus what it meant back in the 1800s when all of this was written. And it is two different things. So it starts with, again, it's just the preamble portion, that the articles of impeachment were written because of misdemeanors in office, and this is for Governor Mike DeWine. So it starts with the first, there's multiple whereases throughout this, and the first whereas, it's actually the second paragraph on page 1, and you can download this at impeachdewine.com. Go out to impeachdewine.com, and what you'll find out there, in addition to finding this document, which you're free to download, you'll also find all 99 state representatives in Ohio, and they're either colored in red or in green. If they're green, they're a co-sponsor. If they are red, they are not. So you may wish to thank the people in green, or you may wish to encourage the people in red to get on as a co-sponsor. They know how to get a hold of me. Article 1 says in the first, main paragraph, Article 1, Section 1 of the Ohio Constitution. I'll read you this snippet. All men are by nature free and independent and have certain inalienable rights, among which are those of enjoying and defending life and liberty, acquiring, possessing, and protecting property, and seeking and obtaining happiness and safety. Next paragraph, which quotes a portion of Article 1, Section 2 of the Ohio Constitution. All political power is inherent in the people. Government is instituted for their equal protection and benefit, and they have the right to alter, reform, or abolish the same whenever they deem it necessary, and no special privileges or immunities shall ever be granted that may not be altered, revoked, or repealed by the General Assembly. Then it goes into top of page 2. This is still a part of the preamble. And then I talk about that first paragraph about how we, the General Assembly, have attempted to work with Governor DeWine. I point out where he has vetoed Senate Bill 55 and has threatened to veto Senate Bill 1 and House Bill 618. And there's multiple other bills that have been floating around in the General Assembly that help get the state under control. So I'll just kind of briefly walk you through where we are with those particular bills. So Senate Bill 55, that reduces the penalty that is imposed by the governor. So if you go against or disobey an order from the Ohio Department of Health, it's an M2. That means it's a second degree misdemeanor, which is a pretty serious crime. You get 90 days in jail and or a $750 fine. So is the maximum sentence for that. So Senate Bill 55 rolls that back, and what it provides is a warning for the first offense, and then you will get 0 jail time and $150 civil penalty. So it changes the M2 to a civil penalty with again 0 jail time and a $150 fine. That is the bill that Governor DeWine has vetoed. And because it's a Senate bill, the override of that veto would have to start in the Senate. So if you want that bill to become law, contact your state senator and have them bring that up for a vote. If they get a supermajority in the Senate, we'll see if we have a supermajority in the House, and we can get this one signed into law. The other bill, I got 3 of them here I'm going to talk about. So Senate Bill 1, that is awaiting conference committee. So I'm not sure where that is. But I think conferees have been named for both the House and the Senate. It's just a matter of them getting together and hashing it out. But what the bill does, Senate Bill 1, it requires a 14-day maximum for Ohio Department of Health orders. After 14 days, then JCAR would have to approve it. And that bill is, again, just waiting on the House Conference Committee. House Bill 618, something I know quite a bit about. I'm the one who authored that bill. What it does is it reverses all current and past Ohio Department of Health orders. And future Ohio Department of Health orders must be approved by the General Assembly. Also, it states that no elections can be canceled by the Ohio Department of Health or by the local levels. So for you all that might be thinking, well, gee, what if the ODH orders, Ohio Department of Health orders, had to be approved by the General Assembly? What about an emergency? Well, the local health departments have many of the same authorities. If there's an emergency in Claremont County or Hamilton County or Franklin County, anywhere else in the state, the local health departments can shut down businesses or do the same thing that the governor's been doing at the state level. So those authorities remain in place. That can be done with a scalpel rather than a wrecking ball that the governor has been using on the entire state. So that's House Bill 618. Back to the Articles of Impeachment. I'm on page 2, second paragraph, and this one talks about Ohio Supreme Court decision where the state is simply not an adequate surrogate for children. They do not replace nurturing parents, and that parents having custody and control of their children is a fundamental liberty. The fundamental liberty that parents enjoy. The next paragraph is also from the Ohio Supreme Court. This is referring to a decision called Steele versus Hamilton County, and has to do with mental health board versus the Ohio Supreme Court. And it said, Article 1, Section 1 of the Ohio Constitution ensures that every Ohioan is provided with personal security, bodily integrity, and autonomy. So that was from the Ohio Supreme Court. Then the last paragraph on page 2, this is referencing Article 2, Section 23 of the Ohio Constitution. States that the House of Representatives shall have the sole power to impeach. Impeachment shall be tried in the Senate. So that's just, and also it takes a 2/3. So it takes a simple majority, 50 votes to impeach. So it'd be similar at the federal level, and a 2/3 majority in the Senate for removal of office. So the impeachment plans are in the Ohio Constitution. So then line 52 in this document starts with Article 2, Section 24 of the Ohio Constitution. And that talks about where the governor can be impeached for misdemeanors. Also says the party impeached, whether convicted or not, shall be liable to indictment, trial, and judgment according to law. So what that means is if the impeachment is successful or not successful, either way, the governor or whoever's being impeached is still subject to criminal law, whatever that might be. So having to do with misdemeanors, that doesn't mean you can't be impeached for felonies. So again, when misdemeanor was written at this time, it meant something different than it meant today. So let's talk about, well, what did misdemeanor mean back then? If you have a Webster 1828 dictionary, which is the go-to document for trying to interpret what did they mean back then, that misdemeanor was defined at that time as ill behavior, ill conduct, fault, or mismanagement. And the definition goes on to talk about more of the general things we think about today with misdemeanors. But so again, point here is that a misdemeanor doesn't have to be a crime. So under the Ohio Constitution, an elected official can be impeached for misbehavior, incompetence, malfeasance, nonfeasance, the list goes on. There doesn't have to be a crime alleged. But throughout these articles, these 10 articles, multiple crimes are alleged, as you're going to see. I just want to point out that a crime is not actually necessary for a successful impeachment. Then the next paragraph, I'm on line 70, about halfway down page 3. Justice Joseph Story. He was a Supreme Court justice from 1812 through 1845. He stated, the offenses to which the power of impeachment has been and is ordinarily applied as a remedy are of a political character, but that crimes of a strictly legal character fall within the scope of impeachment. So he refers to political offenses, personal misconduct, gross neglect, usurpation, that's a good one for judges, and in this case, frankly, Governor DeWine, habitual disregard of the public interests. So that's just more evidence coming from Joseph Story of the Supreme Court at the federal level that misdemeanors do not require any crime to be alleged or proved. Also, in Ohio, there is precedence for impeachments that against, these are all judges actually, that have been impeached. I think about 8 of them. One of them successfully was actually removed from office, and no crimes are ever alleged against any of them. It was just malfeasance, nonfeasance, incompetence, that sort of thing. Overreaching, usurpation. We see that a lot today, of course, with federal judges. Then on the next page, I'm on page 4. States that, this is the last whereas of the preamble, states that impeachment of a state officer is not subject to executive veto or judicial review. So that's been one of our problems with working with Governor DeWine. He has vetoed Senate Bill 55. He has threatened to veto other bills as well, Senate Bill 1 and House Bill 618, amongst others. So, to override those vetoes, we need a supermajority in the House and, of course, a supermajority in the Senate. With the impeachment, all we need is a simple majority, and there is no veto. If we get this through the House with 50 votes, then the Senate will put him on trial. And then if he's convicted by 2/3 of the Senate, then he's gone, and we'll be swearing in Governor Houston. And I certainly hope that happens. Then we start with Article 1. And again, I'm on page 4, line 91. And this is the first of the 10 articles. So it starts with enumerated rights, goes into the first, so it actually quotes Article 1, Section 20 of the Ohio Constitution. Then the first or the second whereas in here is, no single person or governor shall be permitted to assume dictatorial powers. Sound familiar? Then on line 98, this is the third paragraph. This is court decisions. There's several of them listed here. That the Director of Health realizes, that the Director of Health does not have the authority for non-compliance with does not have the authority to impose any penalties for non-compliance with sweeping health orders. The next paragraph, this is the last full paragraph on page 4, and it talks about the violation of the separation of powers. Article 2 then starts at the bottom of line 4, that the governor has violated his oath of office when he canceled the March 17th, 2020 primary election. Now the governor would argue, well, he didn't cancel the election, he simply closed the polling locations. Well, closing the polling locations literally at the 11th hour, this is, in the middle of the night, right before the polls are supposed to open to vote, that's tantamount to canceling an election. Well, he can argue it whatever he wants, and he can. These are types of things a court will decide. But since this is an impeachment hearing, these are the kind of things we will decide. When I say we, I'm meaning the Ohio House of Representatives, and then hopefully the Senate. If we can get this to pass. Then Article 3, similar to Article 2, this has to do with not canceling the election, but actually rescheduling the election. He rescheduled it for June 2nd, or at least that's what he announced with Secretary of State Frank LaRose. Well, he can't do that. That is also illegal. And again, his argument on that is, well, he's not rescheduling the election, he's rescheduling the opening of the polling locations. Yeah, well, you tell me. So Article 4 then gets into, here I'm on middle page 5, irreversible economic hardship that has occurred by the people of Ohio because of Governor DeWine. The next paragraph, that he's closed and restricted private businesses beyond the quarantine isolation powers granted to the department by the Ohio Revised Code. That is record high unemployment, causing not only increased poverty, increased depression, increased despair, and increased suicides. But also the necessity for state budget cuts impacting schools and social programs when they are needed the most. So yeah, he's wrecked the economy. The revenues to the Ohio Treasury have plummeted. And of course, when people need it the most, the money is not there. The last paragraph on page 5 starts with that there's more than 1 million newly unemployed people. 1 million, it's over 1 million, thanks to Governor DeWine. I'm not sure how many at this particular day, how many are unemployed, but the number of unemployed impacted by his policies got well over 1 million. On the top of page 6, that there's millions of people, again, I'm not sure how many we're talking about here, but lots of them, that they had to suffer the additional indignity of not being able to get a hold of the Ohio Department of Family Services, that's the unemployment office, and that created additional and unnecessary hardship. So for months, you have all these unemployed people wanting to file claims, and they can't. Website's down, website's not working, trying to get a hold of people, nobody's answering the phone. They're trying to get a hold of us, state representatives. We're answering the phones. We're trying to get a hold of the people over at the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services, and they're not answering their phones. You walk over there, they're on lockdown. You can't even get in to holler at anybody. They're getting these problems fixed, I think. But I'm still hearing issues, people again calling me about their unemployment issues, and we are trying to work with them as best we can. Also, then the first full paragraph on page 6 has to do with denying emergency health care and dental and vision services. So when he shut down the economy back in March, if you needed a cancer screening, a knee operation, whatever it might have been, you couldn't get that. It was only emergency work because he shut down all the outpatient facilities and inpatient. If you didn't have COVID-19 or some kind of emergency, you were out of luck. All of us suffered because of that. Getting eye appointments, hearing, dental, the list goes on. So because of Governor DeWine, his actions by shutting all that down resulted in needless suffering, worsening of treatable conditions, unnecessary reliance on opiates to mask treatable pain, and increased poverty due to the higher cost of delayed treatment. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you need something with your teeth. Well, as time goes on, those teeth get worse. So now what could have been done with maybe a crown now requires a root canal. So again, thank you, Governor DeWine. And then the paragraph continues with increased depression, increased despair, and increased suicide. There shouldn't be any surprises with any of that. And many of you personally have suffered through this, many of you, and I've been hearing from you. This is why I'm doing this for you, per your request, frankly, per your vocal demands. The last paragraph on page 6 for Article 4. So that starts with or talks about the penalty for violating the Ohio Department of Health orders, and this is repeated actually several times throughout here. So again, it's a $750 fine and 90 days in jail. And of course, all of this is a violation of civil liberties and due process. Article 5, then also on page 6, would be that the governor ordered the shutdown of schools, and that is a power that exclusively belongs to the Board of Education. So he illegally has shut them down. Also, the face coverings that he is requiring on students, that is a violation of students' civil liberties. And parents have been screaming about that as well. And I imagine plenty of kids are screaming about it. The last paragraph then, it has to do with due process. It talks about some court decisions. Again, it's on page 6. Then on top of page 7, that there's opportunities for access to an exemption is denied. So again, due process issue. Also on page 7, then it starts with Article 6. That the governor has put out the wildly inaccurate forecasts and repeatedly misleading COVID-19 data. Then there's a paragraph about misfeasance and malfeasance in office, not having to do with his policy prescriptions, which have proven to be far worse than the virus itself. So what that means is the cure has been worse than the disease. Article 7, again, I'm on page 7, about halfway down. This gets into the issue of face coverings, that it violates civil liberties, and because he moved it from, he did originally question the value of face coverings, and then decided to make them mandatory, that where there was some voluntary compliance, now there's a whole lot of public backlash because of it. The next paragraph, I'm starting on line 196, that talks about where you have 12 million people, nearly 12 million people. I think the population of Ohio is 11.6 million, that were under 24/7 house arrest because of Governor DeWine. If you remember, you weren't allowed to leave your house unless you had a pre-authorized permission slip. So you could walk the dog, you could do some exercise, you could go to the grocery store, all the things you could do. But, you weren't allowed to go across the street to visit a neighbor or a family member. You couldn't go to a cemetery. It just, it was ridiculous. The things you could do and couldn't do. Of course, yeah, you go to the cemetery, you're subject to a 90 days in jail and a $750 fine. Thank you, Governor DeWine. The last paragraph then on page 7 has more, again, it has to do with due process and arbitrary decisions, and that statewide orders having to do with the Public Utilities Commission and a Dispute Resolution Commission, and if there's conflicts and the way those things are handled, also a due process issue. There was, and part of all that has to do with unilateral power that was granted to the Dispute Resolution Commission, again, another due process issue. That next paragraph gets into the same thing about the being an M2. Again, it's a second-degree misdemeanor, $750 fine and 90 days in jail for anybody who violates the Ohio Department of Health edicts. Then gets into where the governor has violated Ohio Revised Code 2921.45. And that has to do with knowingly depriving or conspiring or attempting to deprive any person of a constitutional or statutory right. So because all these constitutional statutory rights that the governor has been violating since March, that's a crime. Section 2921.45. Article 8, again, I'm on middle of page 8, has to do with face coverings in houses of worship. So yes, if you go to church and you're not wearing a face covering, you are subject to be charged with a second-degree misdemeanor, 90 days in jail, and a $750 fine in church. Then at the bottom of that page, again, page 8, that gets into Ohio Supreme Court decision Free exercise clause having to do with religious liberties. Also, that carries over into page 9. Then also on page 9, it starts with Article 9. That has to, again, I talk about face coverings in here being a mandate, which promotes fear, turns neighbors against neighbors. Has anybody heard of something called mask shaming to get people to feel bad and call them selfish and things like that to get them to wear masks? So so you have neighbors against neighbors, you have mask shaming. So these things contract the economy by making people feel fearful to leave their homes at detriment to all Ohioans. How many people are now doing more online shopping? Well, online shopping's all fine and good. I guess it puts some UPS drivers, additional UPS drivers on overtime. But what about the employees at the local stores? Yeah, I used to rarely do or try to avoid doing online shopping. So I'd rather go to a local store and buy things. You're supporting the local economy, local jobs, and the governor's made that much, much harder to do. In the middle of page 9, so second paragraph on Article 9. This has to do with the controversy regarding masks. He says the jury's no longer out, the jury is back, and the jury has decided. Well, I think the governor has a misread on the jury because, based on some things I've been reading and what other people have been pointing out to me, there's a lot of differences of opinion amongst the experts of exactly how effective the masks are, and or even are they dangerous. And there's some interesting YouTube videos on that, and people blowing vaping smoke, or it's not smoke, it's moisture, out of these masks to demonstrate that they are pretty limited in how they stop contaminants from floating around in the atmosphere. So early on, the reason that the experts told us not to wear masks, meaning us, the general public, was because you were more likely to get COVID-19 from wearing a mask, because people aren't used to wearing them. Of course, none of us are. That we would be fidgeting with them, adjusting them. We'd be touching our faces more often because of the mask. Of course, the masks retain moisture, and the moisture then is a trap for bacteria and mold and mildew. I mean, obviously the things get dirty, you're going to wash it, but these things are microscopic pores that you're then breathing in, as well as your own carbon dioxide. All this is potentially dangerous. Healthcare, then in the next paragraph, healthcare professionals, as well as current studies, have contradicted themselves and each other regarding the ability, if any, of face coverings to materially slow the spread of COVID-19. Next paragraph. The mandate to wear face coverings are offensive, insulting, humiliating, degrading, and an indignity. At least many people see it that way. Next paragraph. That Governor DeWine holds business licenses hostage, and he uses coercion to mandate face coverings. So sure, you have a restaurant or a bar, he pulls your liquor license, or he pulls your license to operate, your occupancy permit of your facility. So he holds that over their head, and all of this, and making employees wear masks. All this makes Ohio a hostile work environment. Bottom of page 9 again talks about the any violation of any of this, $750 fine, 90 days in jail. It's a second-degree misdemeanor. Then at the bottom, very last sentence on line 9 talks about Ohio Revised Code 3701.13. That's the magical words in there. Go look it up. I didn't print that out on here, but it has to do with what the governor's been hanging his hat on to take complete control of the economy. And it has to do with the powers you can grant. This was done by the General Assembly back during the Spanish flu, that it does give sweeping powers to the Ohio Department of Health during a pandemic for the purposes of quarantining sick people, not quarantining 11.6 million healthy people. Something very different and never intended by the people who wrote this, back 100 years ago. Also that the governor has used his power against the people with the threat of shutting down businesses and destroying livelihoods, and also that the local health commissioners or authorities are being tasked with being like traffic cops, if you will, trying to enforce mask regulations and 50% or 25%, whatever it is, compliance of limitations in these restaurants. Article 10, finally on the last one, I'm on page 10. So the story with this is in Pennsylvania, they shut down all the liquor stores. So people in Pennsylvania were driving across the border into Ohio to buy liquor. Makes sense. People in Ohio have been driving to Kentucky for decades to buy booze and cigarettes. The problem is the governor said, if you're from out of state, you're not allowed to buy liquor in Ohio. So that's a clear violation of the Commerce Clause. You can't do that. And so that's another, the 10th article. And then there's 3 ending paragraphs on page 10 that you can take a look at. That's really all I have. I'm going to be doing more videos of this nature. They won't be nearly this long. And I'm going to give you updates on who the co-sponsors are and give you more information about contacting your state representatives. And again, I encourage you to go to impeachdewine.com, so see who's currently a co-sponsor. And if your state representative is not on there, reach out to them, ask them to co-sponsor this resolution. They know how to get a hold of me. Again, I'm John Becker, state representative from Claremont County, House District 65. My contact information is on at the end of this video. And if you go to impeachdewine.com, if you don't know who your state representative is, you can there's a little form there to fill out, and there's pre-printed text for you to send to your state representative. Change it to anything you want, or send it as is, either way. And if you don't want to use that website, just go straight to ohiohouse.gov, and kind of in the lower left-hand side, you can look up your state representative there, or get a hold of me or my office, and we can help you with that as well. So again, I'm John Becker, and I hope this has been an informative video, and this is the first one I've ever done. So if I didn't come across all that great, well, it's the first time. So hopefully I'll do better in the future. Have a great day. Bye-bye.